That was a heavy bag. Boy, I know how to pack. That reminds me of the time that Tara and I were young, and we had 2 toddlers, and we had like at least 5 bags of luggage, and I mean some pretty big bags, because we were carrying everything we needed for little ones. And we were landed at the Chicago airport. When we got there, we found out they put the gate for the connecting flight to Florida clear at the opposite end of the airport, literally the opposite end. I had never seen anything like that happen to us before. And we had to run, because we only had like a 30-minute window between landing and the next flight taking off. Somebody didn't plan that one out too well. And we had all that luggage and those toddlers, and we ran as fast as we could. It was difficult. It was hard. I didn't think we'd make it. I didn't think I'd make it. That was quite a run, especially with slick floors and luggage and kids. It was quite an ordeal. We made it. Thank goodness we made it. That flight taught me a lesson. I don't need to pack so much. And most of the time we don't. We usually take way more than we need. I don't know, we worry about what we think we're going to run out of or not have. But the truth is you can buy most stuff that you're that desperate for wherever you go. So that was just kind of crazy packing so much. So I learned a real valuable lesson. Don't need to pack that much, especially when you got little kids with you. But boy, I sure know how to pack. This one's pretty heavy. I'm not sure what I've got in it. What did I pack in this one? Oh my goodness, a 30-pound weight. Now I really don't need that. I must have been thinking I was going to have to work out or something. I'm way not needing a 30-pound weight. You know, I might do the same thing in my regular everyday life. I may not be taking a trip where I'm carrying luggage loaded with weight, but I carry around baggage with me all the time that I don't need to carry. I pack too much stuff into my life sometimes. Sometimes I'm carrying the burden of too much work that I didn't need to make for myself. Maybe Jesus didn't ask me to do it, and I'm doing it, so I'm carrying an extra burden I didn't need to carry. Maybe I'm carrying burdens around about my family and my friends and my church family, things that are concerning me about them. I'm worrying about how their health is, or worrying about their physical needs, worrying about their spiritual needs. Maybe I'm worrying about the world and the problems in it. I'm carrying all that burden on me. I shouldn't do that. I'm making life worse for myself, just like packing too much luggage and running through the airport. I need to not carry burdens I'm not supposed to carry, whether they're spiritual, emotional, or physical. I need to be aware that I'm carrying things I shouldn't. I could have made life even easier at the airport. Tara and I are sometimes tightwads. And here we are, a young couple with all of this extra baggage and kids, and we didn't have to carry all that burden across that airport. We could have paid for one of those cute little golf cart rides across the airport, or we could have paid for a luggage rack even to haul across the airport. So things would have been easier, but we didn't want to spend the money. We didn't want to make it easier on ourselves. We were being tightwads. And that's kind of the same thing we do in just everyday life. We don't try to make the load easier. We don't get rid of our burdens. We cling on to them, and we don't need to. We have a solution to that. We can take another road out. We can not carry that burden. We can have Jesus help us carry that burden. And that'll take us to our passage in Matthew 11. Watch me forget where my passage is at. Matthew 11, 28 and 29. And this may be a very familiar passage to some of you. I've thought about this one a lot since I was first married, actually. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So there is a burden that comes with Jesus, but it's a light and easy burden. It's not like that burden that we try to carry that we make for ourselves, whether it's the burden of guilt, the burden of worry, the burden of overworking ourselves. His yoke is going to be easy and light. And all we have to do is accept his invitation. Verse 28 is an invitation. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden. And I think most of us have been there one place or time or another in our life. We first need to come to him for our salvation, and that's where the burden lifting begins. He lifts all that sin and guilt off of our shoulders, out of our heart. He lightens our load tremendously just by the salvation he gives us and the hope he gives us through that salvation of our future with him. All we have to do is accept that invitation and come to him. And then he will give us rest. That word rest in the Greek means to repose or to rest or to relax. When we go to the woods to camp, I love laying in our hammock that we had. That was always the best part of my year, was getting to lay in that hammock underneath the great big redwoods or the pine trees, depending on where we were camping. And that was reposing and relaxing and resting, and I would get up refreshed. That's the other definition of that word rest in this verse, is to be refreshed. And who doesn't want to be refreshed? And Jesus, when we come to him to lift our sins, when we come to him to release our burdens to him, to help him carry our load with us, he not only gives us rest, he gives us a refreshing. And I know I want that refreshing. The key is to come to him. Come to him first for salvation, and next to come to him with our burdens and have him help us with that. But this is how we get help. We take his yoke. He says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. And the thing is, he says his yoke is easy in verse 30. Now, he's using an old farming picture here, some imagery from farming, where the farmers used to hook up oxen or whatever large animals they had. It could be horses, donkeys, mules, whatever they had. And they'd yoke them together with a custom-made, tailor-made yoke that fit the oxen that was going to be wearing it. It fit them perfectly, so it would be comfortable to carry and to have on them while they worked in the field. And so he's using this imagery to show that Jesus makes a yoke that's easy for us to carry. It's custom made for us. He knows what we can handle or not handle. He knows what we need in our life to help maybe bring some control, just like the yoke would bring some control to the ox that would be wearing it. But the other thing the farmer did was that he would always in general put a older ox with a younger ox to train them. That's like Jesus and us. Jesus is the more experienced, the more trained, the more knowledgeable, the more wise. And when we're yoked together with him, he's going to help us follow the path we need to follow. He's going to make the whole work we have to do easy to do. Just like the bigger ox would help the younger ox. They would steer them in the right direction, keep them following the path they were supposed to follow through the field, keep them on track. And they would also help carry the load of that yoke. That's what Jesus does. He helps carry that load off of us. He takes that burden off of us, just as that younger ox would have the bigger ox take the burden off him. You have to be yoked to Jesus, and you're yoked to him through his teaching and his word, through his spirit. Both those ways are the ways you're yoked to Jesus, and you need to stay connected by staying in the word, by praying and listening to the Spirit when he speaks to you. That's our yoke. That yoke will keep us attached to Jesus throughout each and every day. When we let things go like church worship or Bible study or quiet time in the morning or learning through Sunday school or a Bible study group, when we start letting all that stuff go, or maybe even having Christian fellowship, we're not as yoked to Jesus as we need to be. We need all those things in our life to stay connected to Jesus so he can help carry that burden and make our life easier and lighter. Now, it says that his burden is light. That doesn't mean you're not going to have to carry some load and to do some work. He's not going to remove everything from us. He's just going to make it easy. He's going to make what we have to do for him here on earth easier. He's going to carry that burden and help us to go through, just like the bigger ox helps the younger ox. That's a real important thing to know. So He's not only going to make us feel refreshed, give us rest and ease, he's going to help us in this life. So we have to get yoked to Jesus. That needs to be our priority, not anything else. We need to stop carrying those burdens we don't need to carry. We need to stop packing our luggage with too much stuff. We need to stop worrying. We need to let him carry the burden. He can take care of things. We just have to let him know what it is that's bothering us and let him carry the burden. We don't release. I know I don't. It takes me time, and then I release. But it takes a lot of time with Jesus to get to that point sometimes. Sometimes you have to keep going to him and keep praying about a subject. There's nothing wrong with that. But we have to remember to trust him. He's all-wise and all-knowing, and he'll take care of that burden for us. And then on the other side of the coin, if we have other burdens like we're doing too much work that we shouldn't be doing, or because he hasn't told us to do it, we're just doing it because we think it needs done. Or maybe we're worrying and spending too much time thinking about what's going on in somebody else's life. That's not our job. It's up to God's job to take care of those people, those needs they have. We can pray for them, but we can't carry that burden around and in our heart about what's going on in their life. It's really easy to get that trap. There's also the burden of being self-righteous, and I have fallen into that trap once in a while. Very easy to do when you spend a lot of time at church. You get caught up in the rituals of church, the rituals of living a godly life, and that's what the Pharisees would get in trouble with. And that becomes a burden. When you put too many laws or spiritual responsibilities on yourself that you think you have to fulfill to look good to others, that's a burden you shouldn't be carrying. You need to do what Jesus tells you to do, what his Spirit says, what his Word says, and he'll help you through it. Now, the way he teaches us the way he helps us carry this yoke is he teaches us what we need to know as we need to know it. So don't stress out if you don't know everything in this book the way you think you should know. Don't become overzealous about it. You know, a teacher teaches a child by teaching them what grade level they're at, what age level they're at. So like a first grader, maybe they only need to know about learning to write, learning bigger words, learning to put sentences together, maybe some basic math skills. That teacher's not going to teach them calculus and geometry and great historical events. They're just not going to do that. It's not their age level. They're not ready for that. So the teacher sets the burden for the student at the level they need. It's the same with us and Jesus. The yoke, the burden that he's going to help us carry is going to be set to where we're at spiritually, emotionally, and physically. He knows what we need to learn. He knows what we need to do. But he's going to gear it to where we're at. I'll put it on our level. That's what makes the yoke so easy and light, easy to carry. It's not going to be like us picking up a 30-pound weight when really we should be picking up a 5-pound weight to start our exercising program. Jesus is going to make it so much better for us, and in the end, we're going to come out refreshed by being yoked to him and not yoked to the burdens we carry around that we want to carry around. So thank you for listening, and I pray that you'll have a blessed week.